Snow sifted over Aurelia City, a veil of false softness. In December, the city performed. Glass towers shimmered with light strings, holiday markets exhaled cinnamon steam, and every luxury boutique battled to outglisten the next. To the world, it was magic. To Selena Arkwright, it was the anniversary of the month that broke her life. The penthouse balcony's railing burned cold against her palms. She leaned into the wind, a silhouette for the cameras she knew were always watching. Below, paparazzi lurked like wolves in puffer jackets, lenses pointed skyward. Even through the double-paned glass, she could almost hear the faint, predatory clicks. 3 Christmases ago, a hospital room, draped in the relentless blink of red and green lights, had swallowed her last sense of home. Her younger brother, Lucien, never woke up. Every December since, the world performed a pantomime of sympathy while secretly craving the spectacle of her grief. Her phone glowed on the table behind her. Leaked clips suggest Celine snaps at staff. Another fabrication, another strategic misunderstanding planted in the digital soil. Her manager, ex-manager, she corrected herself, was the source. Marcellus Crane had polished her rise with one hand and tightened his control with the other. She'd fired him 2 months ago, but his ghost still haunted her press cycles, determined to tarnish every Christmas in perpetuity. Behind her, a soft jingle of keys. "You're freezing yourself to the bone," said Mira, her stylist and last true friend. She carried a mug shaped like a lopsided snowman, steam swirling like a fragile shield. "I thought you might need this." Celine accepted the mug, the heat seeping into her numb fingers. Everything about this month feels cold. Far below, a Christmas choir rehearsed in the market square. A single pure voice rose on a gust of wind, so painfully reminiscent of Lucien's earnest tenor at school concerts that Celine's breath hitched. Mira squeezed her arm. "I know, but the gala tomorrow, new album preview, new producer, it's a fresh start." Fresh start. Celine didn't believe in those. She believed in scars and the weather of old pain, but she nodded anyway. Across the glittering cityscape, a string of snowflake lights on a distant building flickered. One bulb went dark and stayed dark. Foreshadowing, Celine thought grimly. December always warns me early. By morning, her face was everywhere. Not for her music, not for the charity gala performance, but because an anonymous account had posted a video of her supposedly screaming at an assistant. It was a crude edit. She could see the jump cuts, the mismatched audio, the stolen clip from a year-old outtake. But the internet metabolized outrage, not truth. Hashtag Celine snaps again. Hashtag Diva December. Hashtag Cancel Arkwright. It was trending worldwide before her coffee cooled. Her agency called 3 times. She sent each to voicemail. Their support was a transactional calculation. If her profitability dipped after the holidays, they would drop her with a polite press release. Mira flung open the bedroom curtains, her face a mask of fury. "This is a coordinated strike. Someone wants you buried before you can step on that gala stage. Look, Marcellus's new pet project is already piling on." Celine took the phone. Vesper Lane, the influencer turned actress renowned for a saintly smile and a serpent's cunning, had tweeted, "The holidays remind us to lead with kindness. Some artists could use the reminder," accompanied by a snowflake and a prayer hand emoji. Subtle, petty, devastatingly effective. Selena exhaled, a shaky sound in the quiet room. "I'm so tired of fighting ghosts." They're not ghosts. They're people with email passwords, bank accounts, and motives. And one of them was named Marcellus Crane. Outside, the city cheerfully conspired against her. Vendors hawked gingerbread, distant sleigh bells jingled, and an off-key rendition of Silent Night drifted from a sidewalk speaker. Every sound felt like a needle picking at a half-healed wound. Her phone pinged, a new email from the gala's event producer. Due to developing PR circumstances, your performance is now conditional. Mandatory technical rehearsal tonight at 8 p.m. Your attendance is required for slot confirmation. Conditional. Required. The language of power wielded like a blunt instrument. Celine looked at her reflection in the dark window. Red-rimmed eyes, the pallor of sleepless nights, a tremor in her hands that December always brought. "I'll go," she whispered more to herself than to Mira, "because I need one thing this month that doesn't fall apart." The gala rehearsal hall was a cavern of false cheer, towering artificial pines, holographic snowstorms projected against the walls, and the tang of electric wiring. Celine's entrance sent a ripple through the stagehands, a mix of pity, curiosity, and professional wariness. At the center of the stage stood a man she hadn't expected, Orion Vale. Actor, producer, tabloid fixture, famous for a jawline that could cut glass and a reputation for being equally sharp. In person, his presence was quieter, his eyes holding a depth the paparazzi flashes never captured. He turned as I approached. "You're early." "I was told my attendance was required," I replied, unable to keep the bitterness from my voice. A faint smile touched his lips. "I meant early for someone carrying the weight you are. I read the headlines." "And you believe them?" "I believe in edited videos about as much as I believe in honest politicians." He studied me, the assessing look of a director. "The producer's being a coward. Your slot is secure. This is your stage." His simple declaration was a small, unexpected raft in the churning sea of the day. "Why the personal guarantee?" He shrugged, a fluid movement. "Because I listened to your demos. What you're trying to do tomorrow isn't just a performance. It's a reckoning. I think the world needs to hear it." Before she could process his words, the stage director bellowed for positions. As she took her mark under the hot lights, she felt Orion's gaze on her. It wasn't the hungry stare of the industry, but something more akin to recognition. She didn't know whether to find it comforting or terrifying. The rehearsal was a disaster in slow motion. Her in-ear monitors squealed with feedback. The backing track skipped. A follow spot died just as she hit her first crescendo. Every glitch felt intentional, and she suspected her confusion when she spotted two unfamiliar crew members hovering near the wings, phones held discreetly aloft. The final blow came in the form of Vesper Lane, who arrived midway through, a vision in blood-red velvet and faux concern. "Oh, Celine," she called out, sweetly loud enough for the entire crew to hear. "What rotten luck with the tech. I do hope they have it sorted for tomorrow. December can be so unpredictable." Celine's hands clenched at her sides, her nails biting into her palms. Later, backstage and frayed, she stumbled against a crate of props. It toppled with a sound like falling icicles. Dozens of delicate glass ornaments, the centerpiece of the gala's finale, spilled across the concrete floor and shattered into 1,000 glittering fragments. The sound was a perfect, horrific echo of the monitor flatlining in Lucien's hospital room. Her chest seized. The air turned to glass in her lungs. Not here. Not now. She was vaguely aware of kneeling, staring at the shimmering wreckage as if it were a premonition. "Celine," Orion's voice cut through the panic. He crouched beside her, careful of the glass. "Look at me. Breathe." "I can't. This month. It's all—" The words fractured in her throat. He didn't touch the mess. He didn't offer empty platitudes. He simply anchored her with his presence. "They're objects. They're not memories. This wasn't your fault." But in Celine's world, where grief and guilt were inextricably fused with the season, Logic held no power. She returned to the penthouse after midnight, the howling wind a fitting chorus to the turmoil inside. Meryl waited in the living room, her face pale in the lamplight. "You need to see this," she said, her voice tight. Celine's stomach plunged. What now? Mira handed her a tablet. A new video was viral, compiled from tonight's rehearsal. It showed only the glitches, her frustrated expression, Vesper's concerned reaction spliced in for maximum dramatic effect. The caption read, "Can Celine Arkwright handle the pressure, or is the Christmas gala doomed?" The comments scrolled like a river of venom. "She's lost it. This is embarrassing. Just retire already." And then the one that stole the air from her lungs. Her brother would be so ashamed. Celine's knees gave way. She caught herself on the back of a chair. "It's targeted," Mira said, her anger giving way to a cold, hard fear. "They're dismantling you piece by piece. And there's more. Your mother called. She saw it." Celine closed her eyes. A single hot tear traced a path down her cheek. Christmas, a season once woven with warmth and light, had become a knife, and someone was meticulously turning the blade. Tomorrow was the gala, and every ally felt distant, every second a step closer to an abyss she wasn't sure she could climb out of. The Christmas gala rose against the night sky like a palace of ice and judgment. Celine stepped from the limousine into a blizzard of flashes. The paparazzis shouted questions sharp as sleet. "Celine, are you being replaced? Is the performance cancelled? Are you in Orion Vale, a PR stunt to save your image? Do you have a comment on the hospital footage?" Security ushered her forward, but the words had already landed, burrowing under her skin. December, it seemed, would grant her no quarter. The red carpet was a river of crimson light, flanked by giant nutcrackers and wreaths of frosted gold. A colossal crystal star hung above the entrance, its glitter feeling less celebratory and more like the watchful eye of a predator. Orion waited just inside the grand doors. He offered his elbow, a gesture both old-fashioned and defiant. "You don't have to walk the gauntlet alone." "I'm walking with you is throwing gasoline on the rumor mill," she said, her voice low. "Let it burn," he replied, his gaze steady. "They'll talk regardless. At least this way, you're not facing them alone." After a heartbeat's hesitation, she slid her hand into the crook of his arm. The crowd's roar surged, phones lifted in unison, a forest of tiny screens capturing the moment. Hashtags were being born in real time. Inside, the gala was a masterpiece of opulent illusion. Ice sculptures weeping under spotlights, synthetic snow drifting from the rafters, carolers in ethereal gowns. But Celine's trained eye saw the seams. The security cameras were too numerous. Several guests held their phones with the focused stillness of professional recorders. Marcellus would adore this chaos, she thought, scanning the glittering throng. And there, holding court beneath an arch of crimson poinsettias, was Vesper Lane. Surrounded by sycophants, she lifted a champagne flute in a mock toast, her eyes meeting Celine's with a glint of cold triumph. Her performance was scheduled to open the second act, a stripped-down, acoustic version of Winter's Echo. The song was, as the most sensitive gossip columns guessed, about Lucien. It was a raw nerve set to music. Backstage, in a dressing room over-decorated with tinsel and a digital fireplace, Celine paced. A small silver gift box sat on her vanity. No card, no tag. Her heart thudded dully against her ribs. She lifted the lid. Inside, nestled on black velvet, was a single old-fashioned Christmas bell. Tarnished, cracked down the middle. It was an exact match for the ones Lucien had collected. The blood drained from her face, leaving her cold and hollow. Mira burst in. 5 minutes, Celine. They need you at the... She froze, following Celine's gaze to the broken bell. Where did that come from? It was here, waiting. Mira reached for it, then stopped. This isn't just sabotage. This is psychological warfare.
A firm knock, and Orion entered. "They're ready for you." He saw the bell. His expression hardened from concern into something dark and furious. "That's a message." "It's a threat," Celine corrected, her voice barely a whisper. He stepped closer, his presence a solid wall against the rising tide of her panic. "Celine, listen to me. Whatever happens out there, whatever they try, you are not what they say. You are the person who survived. Remember that." "Why are you doing this?" she asked, searching his face. "You don't know me." "I know what it looks like when the world tries to erase someone, and I know the sound of real talent. Now, go out there and remind them." The stage manager's call came again, urgent. The main hall fell into a hush as Celine walked to the lone stool at center stage. The set was a winter cathedral of white fabric and softly drifting fake snow. She cradled the guitar, its weight both a burden and an anchor. She strummed the first haunting chord. Her voice emerged, fragile at first, trembling with the memory of Lucien harmonizing with her in their childhood bedroom. But as the verse unfolded, the fragility transformed into strength, the grief into a resonant, aching beauty. For 2 minutes, the glittering crowd vanished. There was only the song, the memory, and a public vulnerability so raw that it silenced the room. Then, the sound system screamed. A deafening shriek of feedback erupted from the speakers, shredding the moment. The music cut out entirely. Celine flinched, the guitar slipping from her grasp with a discordant thrum. Gasps rippled through the audience. A single derisive laugh pierced the sudden quiet. On stage, under the merciless lights, Celine's heart didn't just sink, it shattered. This wasn't a glitch. It was an execution. The malfunction was trending before she reached the wings. Hashtag Celine silenced. Hashtag gala glitch. Hashtag career ends with a feedback screech. Clips were already online, not of the beautiful, fragile beginning, but of the catastrophic end, looped and set to mocking music. Backstage, Celine stared at Mira's phone as the comments stacked like bricks in a wall meant to bury her. She can't even perform live anymore. Is this a mental breakdown? Using her dead brother for sympathy and can't even get through this song? Orion appeared, his jaw a hard line. That was a directed hack. The audio board was accessed remotely. I've got my tech guy on it. He glanced at her, his anger softening into protectiveness. Are you okay? Before she could answer, a cloud of cloying peppermint perfume announced Vesper's arrival. Oh, darling, what an absolute tragedy. Technical issues are a bitch, aren't they? Almost like karma. Celine turned, a cold fury cutting through her numbness. Your performance is impressive, Vesper. Pity it's confined to the sidelines. Vesper's mask slipped for a second, revealing pure venom, before she smoothed it back into place and sauntered away. Mira took Celine's elbow. We can't stay here. It's a feeding frenzy. But as they moved through the backstage labyrinth, she saw them again, the same 2 crew members from rehearsal. Phones pointed her way. The whispers were a susurrus around her, a chorus of judgment. This gala was never a stage. It was a hunting ground, and she was the quarry.
Celine escaped to a side balcony overlooking a deserted courtyard. The cold air was a slap, clearing the haze of humiliation. Snow fell in earnest now, muffling the distant noise of the gala. A soft click sounded behind her. She turned slowly. A man stood in the shadows, a professional camera in his hands. His press badge was crooked, outdated. Her breath caught. She knew that face, forever linked to her worst memory. Rhett Calder, the paparazzo who had snapped the photo of her crumpled on the hospital steps 3 years ago, the one that had been memed across the internet with cruel captions. What do you want? Her voice was flat, exhausted. He lowered the camera, an uncharacteristic hesitation in his movements. I'm not here for a shot. Then why are you here? To give you something.
Information. He glanced over his shoulder, nervous. Someone's bankrolling a campaign to destroy you, paying for leaks, coordinating the viral pushes, directing the narrative. It's too clean, too fast to be random. Celine's short hammered against her ribs. Who? Rhett met her eyes, his own filled with a complicated shame. This same person who paid me $15,000 for the hospital step photo, the same person who owns half of the gossip blogs running these stories. The name hung in the frozen air between them. Marcellus Crane. Celine breathed, the confirmation landing like a physical blow. Rhett nodded grimly. He's not done. He's got a finale planned for Christmas Eve. Something bigger, personal. A new, deeper dread unfurled inside her. What is it? He shook his head, backing away. I've said too much. He'll ruin me. He's already ruined me. Celine took a step forward, desperation cracking her voice. What is it, Rhett? What's coming? He paused at the doorway, a silhouette against the golden light from within. His final words were almost lost in the wind. It's about your brother. And the night he died. Then he was gone, leaving Celine alone in the swirling snow with a warning that felt like a death sentence. She stood frozen, Rhett's words echoing in the hollow of her mind. The night he died. What more could they possibly twist? What truth could they weaponize? From inside the gala, a wave of sound crested. Gasps, shouts, the shattering of glass. Instinct propelled her back inside. The grand hall was in chaos. The ambient holiday music had cut off, all the festive lights, the twinkling strings in the trees, the glowing snowflakes, the massive star, flickered once, twice, and died. Darkness, punctuated only by the anxious glow of 100 phone screens. Then the giant projection screens flanking the stage hummed to life. The footage was grainy, shaky, shot on a phone. It showed a sterile hospital hallway, the timestamp in the corner, glaring. December 24th, 3 years ago. A younger Celine, her face bloated with tears, slid down a wall, her silent sobs shaking her frame. The camera panned, zooming in through a doorway to where a small, still form lay in a bed, surrounded by silent, blinking machines. Lucien. A collective, horrified gasp sucked the air from the room. On screen, the Celine of the past mouthed the words, "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." The video cut to black. A single burning white hashtag appeared. Hashtag guilty sister. The lights snapped back on, blindingly harsh. Every eye in the room swiveled to her. The stares were no longer of curiosity or pity, but of revulsion, morbid fascination. Whispers detonated like shrapnel. Did she film that herself? How could she? This is monstrous. Celine couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The world had collapsed into a single searing point of exposure. Her most private agony was now public domain, framed as a confession she never made. Through the blur of tears and shock, she saw her. Vesper Lane, leaning against the balcony railing, her phone held aloft, pointed directly at Celine's shattered face. And she was smiling. Orion was at Celine's side in an instant, his body a shield between her and the staring crowd. Don't look. Celine, don't look at them. But it was too late. The annihilation was complete. Her grief had been turned into a weapon, and the trigger had been pulled on the world's biggest stage. Christmas Eve was tomorrow, and whatever Rhett had warned of, it was already here. The gala descended into bedlam. Security tried to herd guests, publicists screeched into headsets, and the relentless flash of cameras transformed the hall into a strobing nightmare. Orion guided Celine, half carrying her through a service corridor. "We're leaving. Now." Her legs were leaden, her mind a white noise of horror. They don't think anything worth hearing," he said, his voice a low, urgent anchor. "This was an ambush. We just need to get you safe." Mira materialized beside them, her face is ashen. "Cars at the west exit, but the vultures are already there." They pushed through a fire door into the alley. The promised blizzard had arrived, snow driving sideways. And waiting for them, a semicircle of paparazzi, their lenses like hungry eyes in the storm. They surged forward, shouting over the wind, "Celine, did you leak the video for sympathy? Were you responsible for Lucien's accident? Is this a cover-up? Orion, are you her crisis manager or your boyfriend?" Rhett was among them, but he wasn't shooting. He was trying to hold back the others, a futile gesture of atonement swallowed by the frenzy. Orion pulled Celine tight against his chest, using his coat to block her face as his driver fought to open the car door against the press of bodies. A camera shoved too close, the flash exploding against Celine's shut eyes. In that blinding instant, she didn't see light. She saw the flicker of the hospital monitor, the final, flat, green line. The car door finally gave. Orion shoved her inside and piled in after, slamming the door on the shouting, the snow, the world. As the car pulled away, Celine curled into herself, shaking violently. The glittering city passed in a smear of gold and white. She hated the lights. She hated the snow. She hated the monstrous grinning season that had consumed her past and was now devouring her present. Orion didn't speak. He simply placed a steadying hand over her clenched fists. In the terrible silent understanding of that touch, Celine realized a new, chilling truth. This wasn't just revenge from Marcellus Crane. It was a meticulously planned countdown to her professional and personal ruin, and the final hour, she feared, was still to come.
Her penthouse, once a sanctuary of high ceilings and serene views, now felt like a glass prison. The city's Christmas lights twinkled mockingly below, a panorama of cheer that underscored her isolation. She sank onto the sofa, trembling not from cold, but from a deep, systemic shock. Mira moved through the room with mechanical efficiency, fetching water, adjusting the thermostat, speaking in a clipped tone to lawyers on the phone. "We're issuing cease and desist to every site hosting the footage. We're demanding the gala provide their security logs. Celine heard the words, but they sounded distant, meaningless. "It doesn't matter," she whispered, her voice raw. "Once it's out there, it's a ghost. You can't kill a ghost." "You don't have to let it haunt you to death," Mira insisted, her own fear sharpening the edge of her words. Orion stood sentinel at the window, his profile tense against the night. That hospital footage came from somewhere. Who had access? Family, medical staff, hospital security, and anyone they might have sold it to, or been paid by. "My family wouldn't," Celine said, but the statement was a reflex, hollowed out by doubt. Grief did strange things to people. Money did stranger ones. "Marcellus had a key to my life," she admitted, the confession pulled from a deep well of shame. "He knew everything. He scheduled my life down to the minute. The day of the accident, Marcellus insisted I do a last-minute holiday radio spot. Career comes first, Celine, always. I was 20 minutes late to the hospital. Lucien was already in a coma when I arrived." Orion left the window and knelt before her, his gaze level and intense. "Listen to me. You were a kid. He was a predator. That guilt you carry, he planted it. He's been watering it for years, waiting for this exact moment to harvest." The logic was sound,
but it couldn't penetrate the bedrock of her sorrow. "It feels like my sentence," she said, "one I deserve." Outside, a massive municipal Christmas tree in the square below flickered erratically, one string of lights going dark, another blazing too brightly, then dying. An omen flickering in the silent snow. The dawn brought no respite, only a new form of assault. The internet had spent the night dissecting the leaked video, crafting narratives of guilt and exploitation. Her mother's phone went straight to voicemail. Her agency's formal email suggested a voluntary hiatus, the corporate kiss of death. In a conference room at Mira's hotel, a team of crisis consultants spoke in a sterile language of optics, narratives, and controlled disclosure. "The public needs to see contrition," one said, tapping his tablet. "For what?" Orion challenged, his patience gone. "For being a victim of a crime?" "To the distress the situation has caused," another consultant clarified, her tone implying Celine was the situation. Celine stood up, the chair scraping loudly. "I need air." She walked out, Mira a silent shadow behind her. The morning was brittle and bright, the snow covering the city's grime in a blanket of temporary purity. They walked without direction, past stores playing relentless carols, past children laughing on a sledding hill. The festive normalcy was a separate universe. "I miss home," Celine said suddenly. "Real home, where Christmas smelled of pine needles and my father's careable eggnog, not branded perfume and desperation." "You left to sing," Mira said softly. "I left to be heard. Now all they hear are lies." As they crossed a street, a small figure broke from the crowd. A boy, no older than 10, holding a piece of cardboard. On it, in messy, heartfelt marker, was written, "Celine, your song Light Through Snow got me through my dad being gone. Don't stop." He waved, a shy, fierce gesture, before his mother hurried over, apologizing, pulling him away. But in that fleeting, wordless connection, she felt it. A tiny, stubborn crack in the ice encasing her heart. It wasn't healing. It was the faintest spark of defiance. Someone, out there, had listened and heard her, not the noise around her. The package arrived at dusk. A simple, elegant box, no return address, just her name and flowing gold script. A chill deeper than the winter air crept up her spine. She opened it. Inside, nestling on a bed of black silk, was a Christmas ornament. A delicate, hand-blown glass snowflake, one edge chipped. She knew it instantly. It was Lucian's favorite. He dropped it on the polished floor of the hospital lobby, the ping of its fragile break echoing in the silent room. She thought the pieces were swept away, lost forever. Beneath it, a card. "Truth sets you free. Lies keep me yours. M." The room tilted. Mir snatched the card. "This is evidence. We're calling the police, now." "No," Celine breathed, her hand closing protectively, painfully around the cold glass. "This isn't evidence. It's a trophy. And a promise. He's telling me he's not finished." Her phone chimed with a trending alert. Hashtag Celine Family Secrets. Hashtag The Truth About Lucian. Hashtag Arkwright Cover-Up. The new leak was an audio file. A voicemail from her own number, time-stamped 3 years ago, the night Lucian died. Her own voice, ragged with tears, filled the room from Mira's speaker. "It should have been me. I should have been there. I should have protected him." The internet spun it as a confession of culpability. Her private torment, the midnight cries she thought were swallowed by the dark, had been harvested, weaponized. Orion entered, his face grim with purpose. "Celine, I tracked the IP cascade for the initial video leaks. They're being routed through a shell company, but the trail points back to a media holding group that Marcellus Crane consults for." He stopped dead. His eyes locked on the ornament in your hand.
What is that? Celine looked up, the shattered snowflake glinting in her palm. The past, she whispered, and he's not done digging it up. Sleep was impossible. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the hospital screens, the flashing cameras, Vesper's smile. The line between memory and nightmare dissolved. At 3 in the morning, she gave up. Wrapping herself in a blanket, she stepped onto the balcony. The city was quieter, the festive lights glowing with a persistent, eerie cheer against the black sky. The snow had stopped, leaving a perfect, unbroken layer of white on adjacent rooftops. Click. The sound was soft, digital, unmistakable. She turned slowly. A figure stood on a rooftop of the lower building across the street, dark coat, hood pulled up. The moon glinted off a long camera lens, pointed directly at her. Watching. Recording. In the dead of night. A visceral terror, colder than the air, clamped around her heart. She stumbled back into the living room, her breath coming in short, sharp gasps. Mira rushed out, followed by Orion. What is it? Someone on the roof, watching, Celine managed, pointing a trembling hand. Orion was at the window in 2 strides, peering out. Mira joined him, her face pressed to the glass. The rooftop was empty, only smooth, undisturbed snow, glittering under the ambient city light. There's no one there, Celine, Mira said gently, worry etching her features. I saw him. I heard the shudder. Orion continued to scan the neighboring buildings, his expression grave. If he was there, he's gone now. He turned to her, and in his eyes, he didn't see doubt. He saw a mirrored fear. You're not losing your mind. Someone is trying to make you believe you are. That's the point, to isolate you, to break you completely. He placed a steadying hand on hers. It was warm, solid, but Celine felt only the deep, pervasive cold of the truth. This was more than a smear campaign. It was a systematic dismantling of her reality, her sanity, her right to grieve in peace. Tomorrow was Christmas Eve, the day Rhett had warned about, the day Marcellus had promised his finale. As she stood there, surrounded by the ghost of her brother in a broken ornament and the invisible eyes of her enemy, Celine understood that the glittery, festive world outside was a lie. The real battle wasn't for her career. It was for her very story. And the final chapter was about to be written, whether she was ready or not.